Everyone in the village of Emuaka knew Adanne, could not live there for even a single day without hearing her name in some conversation, whether whispered in admiration or muttered in mockery. She was a vision of beauty so striking that even women who disliked her could not deny it. Her skin carried the deep, rich glow of freshly polished bronze under the hot African sun, as if the gods had poured honey and sunlight together to create her. Her eyes were large, almond-shaped, and sparkled like river water dancing under the afternoon light, and her hair, thick, black, and flowing, seemed to drink in the daylight and shine with its own life. Men would see her walking past the market and forget what they came to buy. Women would pause in their pounding of yam to watch her, half admiring, half envious. Children loved her smile. It had the warmth of morning light after a long night, but Adanne carried with her something that made her beauty almost unbearable. Scent, the moment she came close, that beauty would blur and the air would thicken. Her body odor was strong, overpowering. The kind of smell that seemed to grip the back of your throat and linger long after she had passed. It was not the smell of dirt or sweat, no. Adanne was perhaps the cleanest woman in the whole village. She bathed more than once every day, scrubbing her skin with fine soaps her father imported from distant lands. She rubbed herself with oils, pressed from she-nuts and perfumed with crushed flowers. She wore scented beads around her neck and waist. But no matter what she did, the pungent, sour, almost metallic odor clung to her, as though it had been woven into her very flesh. It was this strange and persistent smell that turned her life into a riddle the village could not solve. Suitors came often, especially when they heard of her beauty, but had not yet met her. They came from nearby villages and even from distant lands. They arrived with gifts galabishes of palm wine, goats, fine cloth, and cowries. At first their faces would light up at the sight of her, eyes widening in disbelief that such beauty could be real. But then they would step closer to greet her properly, and something in their expressions would change. Their smiles would stiffen, their voices would falter, their hands would hover uncertainly in the air instead of reaching out. Some tried to endure it for the sake of her looks, but by the second or third meeting they always found a reason. To leave, she is cursed, some elders would say quietly, shaking their heads. The gods must have given her beauty beyond compare, but took away her scent to humble her. Others had different theories. Maybe she was born under a bad point. Moon, one old woman said at the well one afternoon. Maybe her mother ate the wrong herbs when she was pregnant. Or maybe one of the younger women said with a sly grin, the smell is just who she is. Some people are born to be admired, not loved. They laughed, covering their mouths with their scarves, and though they spoke softly, Adanne heard. Them, she heard more than she ever let anyone know. Her father, Chief Yen Gwem, was a man of great wealth and influence. He loved his daughter dearly, for she was the only child of his late wife Njosi, who had died when Adanne was only 6 years old. He had tried everything a father could think of to rid her of the odor. He had summoned herbalists from the mountains, healers from across the river, and even a traveling wise man who claimed he could speak to the spirits of the ancestors. They had all tried boiling special leaves for her to bathe in, rubbing her skin with rare oils, chanting over her at night, while burning sacred herbs. Nothing worked. The smell would fade for a short while, but always return, as stubborn and unyielding as a shadow. Despite this, Chief Enkim refused to see his daughter as less than a treasure. He made sure she was educated, well-dressed, and respected in public. But respect was a fragile thing. People bowed to her as the chief's daughter, yet behind her back, they called her Adanne Nuanyikpu. Adanne, the woman of smell. The cruel nickname spread until even children used it, sometimes without malice, simply because they had heard it from their parents. Adanne herself carried her pride like armor. She never walked hunched or tried to hide her face. She moved with the grace of a queen, her chin lifted, her eyes meeting everyone's gaze without flinching. In the market, she would stroll between stalls, choosing ripe plantains or the best woven baskets, as if she heard nothing of the whispers. Behind her, she caught someone staring. She would smile, slow, knowing smile that made them look away. But pride, no matter how thick, is never without cracks. In the silence of her room at night, when the moonlight painted pale shapes on the walls, Adanne would lie awake. She would press her face into her pillow and cry quietly, not because she could not bear the smell she had long grown used to it, but because she feared. She would never know the touch of a man who loved her, never hear someone call her wife, never feel the joy of children running to her with open arms. Beauty without companionship was like a drum with no rhythm. It looked fine, but it was empty. One harmattan season, when the wind was dry and dust lay on every leaf, a messenger arrived in Amuaka from the neighboring kingdom of Obodo. He carried an announcement from Prince Obina, the only son of King Akin. The prince, known far and wide for his wisdom, bravery, and wealth, had decided it was time to take a wife. The king had decreed that any maiden from any kingdom could present herself at the palace. For 3 days, the prince would meet women from across the lands, speak to them, and at the end, choose one to be his queen. The news spread like wildfire. In Omioka, women began preparing at once. Tailors' huts were crowded with girls wanting new dresses. Hairdressers worked from dawn till dark, plaiting intricate patterns and decorating them with cowrie shells. Mothers polished jewelry that had been passed down through generations. Every maiden saw this as a chance to escape the hard life of the village and live in a palace of marble floors and golden goblets. When Adanne announced she would go, laughter rippled through the air like wind through dry leaves. Go where? One young man scoffed at the palm wine stand. To the palace, so that the prince's guards can faint before she even speaks? Perhaps she thinks the smell will scare away the other women, another joked, and the group roared with laughter. Even some of the women shook their heads. It is better to protect what little dignity you have than to let the whole kingdom mock you. One market woman said, her voice full of pity, but Adanne paid no mind. Her father, though worried, did not. Stop her, if you must go, he said one evening, sitting by the fire. Then go with your head high. You are my daughter. Let them see that. The next morning, Adanne prepared herself without hurry. She chose not the brightest or richest dress, but a simple, flowing white gown that moved like water when she walked. A single necklace of carved beads, her mother's gift to her before she died. She tied her hair into a neat crown, letting a few soft curls frame her face. Then, without looking back, she began the long walk to the neighboring kingdom. The road to Obodo was alive with travelers, most of them women heading to the palace. They chattered excitedly, adjusting their headscarves, exchanging rumors about the prince. Some looked at Adanne and then quickly turned away, their expressions shifting from curiosity to discomfort as they caught her scent in the passing breeze. By the time she reached the palace gates, the courtyard was already filled, with women, some laughing together, some standing alone, their eyes sharp with determination. The palace itself was a sight to behold. High walls painted in red and gold, tall palm trees swaying gently, guards in shining armor standing at attention. Drums sounded somewhere deep inside, their steady rhythm like the heartbeat of the kingdom. Adanne stepped into the courtyard, her bare feet touching the smooth stones, her white gown catching the light. Whispers rose instantly, spreading like ripples in water, and covered their noses subtly. Others simply stared. But Adanne walked forward, her gaze fixed on the great doors ahead. The doors that would lead her to Prince Obina himself, for she had decided long before reaching the palace, she would not go there to plead for love or to hide her flaw. She would go to show the prince, and all who doubted her, that her worth was deeper than her scent, that courage, pride, the strength of her spirit could not be washed away, and if he could not see that, then she would leave as she had come alone, but unbroken. The courtyard of the palace was alive with the hum of many voices, a river of laughter, whispers, and the occasional nervous cough. Women of every shape and shade stood under the wide sun, dressed in silks, fine cottons, and shimmering beads. Some had their hair piled high in elaborate designs adorned with golden combs. Others had theirs braided neatly with cowries and colored threads. The air was heavy with the mingled scents of perfume, oils, and flower, growled. In the center of it all stood Adanne, her simple white gown making her stand out among the jewel-toned crowd like a single bright star in a painted sky. Her gown swayed gently with her movements, and the carved beads of her mother's necklace rested quietly against her collarbone. Around her, women glanced and whispered, their eyes darting toward her and away again, some with pity, others with thinly disguised amusement. Even here, in a place meant to impress the prince, her scent moved ahead of her like an invisible herald, strong, unrelenting, and impossible to ignore. A group of women gathered a few steps away, speaking just loudly enough for her to hear. "That is her, isn't it?" one said, her hand half covering her lips. "Yes, the one from Iwaka. They say her beauty's unmatched until you get too close. I wonder if she even knows." "Oh, she knows. How could she not?" Adanne kept her chin lifted, eyes fixed on the great palace doors. She had learned long ago that to answer such words was to give them power. Silence was a shield, and she wore it well. The palace gates creaked open, and a royal guard stepped forward, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "Prepare yourselves. His Highness, Prince Obina, will see you one by one." A hush fell. The first name was called, and a tall woman in a glittering green gown stepped forward, her hips swaying confidently as she entered the palace. Those waiting outside leaned in toward each other, trying to guess what the prince might be looking for. Was it beauty alone? Grace? Intelligence? Wealth? No one knew. The process was slow. Each woman emerged from the palace after several minutes, her expression revealing little. Some came out smiling, others with their lips pressed tight. Adanne watched, her heart steady. Finally her name was called, Adanne, daughter of Chief Enshim of Imuwaka. The crowd shifted slightly, and Adanne walked forward. She moved with calm steps, feeling the eyes on her, the curiosity, the judgment. As she passed the line of guards and crossed into the palace, the scent of polished wood and burning incense filled her nose, placing the hot, dusty air outside. The throne hall was grand, but not gaudy. Tall, carved pillars lined the walls, and bright sunlight streamed through open windows, falling onto the polished marble floor. At the far end sat Prince Obina, dressed in a deep red robe with gold embroidery that caught the light. He was taller than she had imagined, his shoulders broad, his posture relaxed yet commanding. His skin was the rich brown of roasted kola nuts, his eyes dark and sharp, and when he looked at her, it was with the kind of gaze that seemed to read the soul. As she approached, she noticed a subtle shift in his expression, his nostrils flaring slightly, his eyes narrowing just for a moment. It caught her scent. Most men reacted the same way, a flicker of discomfort they tried to mask. But unlike the others, Obina did not lean back or turn his face away. "Adanne, daughter of Chief Enshim," he said, his voice deep and even. "I have heard of your father, and I have heard of you." She stopped before him, standing tall. "I have also heard of you, your highness. A prince who leads warriors into battle himself, who listens to his people before making judgment, who treats his word as a bond." He studied her for a long moment. "Do you know why you are here?" "I am here because you seek a wife," she answered plainly. "But I am not here to charm you with beauty, or to hide what others see as my flaw. I am here to show you that a queen must be more than the sweetness of her scent." A murmur went through the small gathering of attendants behind him. The prince's lips curved slightly, as though in amusement or interest. "And what, in your own words, makes you worthy of such a role?" "'Cause I do not turn away from what others fear," she said. "'Cause I will stand beside you in the sun and in the storm. Yes. Because I will defend what is mine, and I will protect your people, as fiercely as I would protect my own. I may not be the most pleasing to the senses, but my loyalty will never be in question." The prince leaned forward slightly, resting his chin on his hand. "And if I were to ask you to prove this loyalty, to show me your courage, not just speak of it, then I would accept whatever challenge you give me," Adanne replied without hesitation. The room went still. The prince sat back, his eyes never leaving hers. "There is a beast," he began slowly, "in the deep forest beyond the river. It has killed my hunters and stolen livestock from my people. Warriors have gone to slay it and never returned. If you can kill it and bring back its head, I will believe you." A gasp rippled through the attendants. The beast was a thing of fear, spoken of in whispers, huge, cunning, and deadly. No woman had ever been asked to face it.
Ow.
Many men had tried and failed, but Adanne's face did not change. "Then I will go," she said simply. The prince's brow lifted slightly. "Do you not wish to know more about this beast before you?" "Decide. I will learn as I go," she said. "I do not fear knowing the danger only after I have faced it." For the first time, Obina's lips curved into a small smile. "Very well. You leave tomorrow at dawn. We return alive. We will speak again." Adanne bowed her head slightly, then turned to leave the hall. She did not look back, though she could feel the eyes of everyone on her as she walked away. Outside, the women waiting stared at her in surprise. "What did he say to you?" one of them asked eagerly. "He gave me a task," Adanne replied. "What kind of task?" Another pressed. "The kind that will make him believe me," she said, and nothing more. Word spread quickly. By nightfall, the palace and the surrounding village were buzzing with the news. The prince had sent a woman to kill the forest beast. Some laughed and said she would never return. Others shook their heads and muttered that she was foolish to even try. But there were a few, very few, who wondered if perhaps Adanne would surprise them all. That evening, she returned to her small guest room in the palace compound. A servant brought her food, but she ate little. Instead, she sat by the window, looking out at the distant line of dark trees where the forest began. The wind carried the scent of the night, cool, earthy, alive. Somewhere out there, the beast waited. She thought of the laughter she had endured in her life, the pitying glances, the men who could not stand close to her. She thought of her father's quiet hope and the strength she had taught herself to carry. This was not just about proving herself to a prince. It was about proving to herself that her worth had never been measured by what others smelled, but by what she was willing to do when tested. When the moon rose high, silvering the palace walls, Adanne lay down to rest. But her sleep was light, her dreams restless. And when the first cock crowed, she was already awake, ready to walk into the forest where many had gone and never returned. The morning air was cool, but it carried a quiet heaviness, as if the forest itself had drawn in a deep breath and was waiting. Adanne rose before the sun, her white gown from the previous day replaced by a simple wrap tied above her knees. She bound her hair tightly so it would not fall in her face. And around her waist, she tied a small leather pouch containing dried meat and a flask of water. Her father's old spear, the one he had used in his youth before becoming chief, rested. In her hand, it was not new or ornate, but the wood was strong, the tip sharp, and it had been seasoned by years of battle. The palace guards stood at the gates, watching her approach. Some eyed her with curiosity, others with doubt. One leaned to another and muttered, "She will not return." Adanne caught the words but did not react. She had heard worse from people she cared about more than strangers. Prince Obina himself was not there to see her off. That was fine by her. Did not want an audience for this journey. Only the quiet, only the road ahead. Without waiting for permission, she stepped past the gates and began the long walk toward the forest. The land changed as she walked. The open paths of the kingdom gave way to narrower tracks, and the songs of market women were replaced by the rustling of grass and the cries of unseen birds. By midday, she reached the river. Its waters moved slowly here, dark and deep, reflecting the blue of the sky in places, but hiding shadows beneath the surface. She drank sparingly from her flask, then crossed at a shallow bend, the cold water numbing her feet before she reached the far bank. Beyond the river, the forest loomed. The trees grew tall and close, their thick canopies weaving together to block much of the sunlight. The air inside was damp and heavy, filled with the scent of moss and earth. Every sound seemed louder here, the snap of a twig, the call of a monkey, the rustle of leaves far above. Adanne moved slowly at first, listening, her spear gripped firmly. She did not know exactly where the beast made its lair, but she had heard enough from the guards and villagers to guess it stayed near the deeper parts of the forest, where the trees were oldest and the ground rarely felt the sun. Hours passed. She saw signs of the beast before she saw the creature itself. A patch of earth churned up as if something had rolled there. Deep claw marks gouged into the bark of a tree. Bones scattered in a clearing, some picked clean, others still clinging to scraps of flesh. The smell here was almost unbearable rot. Decay, and something sharp, like old blood. It reminded her, oddly, of the way people described her own scent when they thought she wasn't listening. But unlike them, the beast did not have to live in shame of it. It ruled this place by the strength of its body and the terror of its presence. She crouched low, moving between the trees, her ears straining. Then she heard it, a low, deep growl that seemed to come from the earth itself. She froze, every muscle taut. The sound came again, closer this time. Then, with a sudden crash of breaking branches, it emerged. The beast was massive, larger than any animal she had seen. Its body was covered in matted black fur, streaked with mud and blood. Its eyes glowed yellow in the dim light, and its teeth, long and curved, gleamed wet. It moved on 4 legs, but its shoulders were so broad it seemed almost human in its stance. The stench that came off it was overwhelming, thick and suffocating. It saw her instantly and roared, the sound vibrating in her bones. Then it charged. Adanne did not run. She had no illusions. Turning her back on it would be the same as offering her neck. She sidestepped its first lunge, the spear darting out to slash across its flank. It howled in pain, whipping around faster than she expected, one massive paw swiping at her. The claws grazed her arm, tearing cloth and skin. Warm blood began to drip, but she ignored it, focusing on her breathing. Her grip on the spear, the beast circled, its head low, watching her. She moved with it, her feet light on the forest floor. When it leapt again, she thrust the spear forward, aiming for its chest. The point sank deep, but the beast's momentum carried it forward, knocking her to the ground. The spear snapped under its weight. She rolled away just in time to avoid its snapping jaws. Her heart pounded, but her mind was clear. She scrambled to her feet, seizing a fallen branch thick enough to serve as a club. The beast came at her again, slower now, favoring its wounded side. She swung hard, striking its head. Then again, each blow fueled by every insult, every whispered joke, every moment she had been made to feel less than whole. The final strike landed with a crack that echoed through the trees. The beast staggered, its legs giving way. With a shuddering breath, it collapsed to the ground, unmoving. Stood over it, chest heaving, sweat and blood mingling on her skin. She did not celebrate. There was no victory yet, not until she returned with proof. Using the sharpest shard of her broken spear, she severed the beast's head. It was heavy, and the smell was worse up close, but she lifted it without hesitation. The scent of the beast's death clung to her now, blending with her own, but she no longer cared. The journey back to the palace took the rest of the day and into the night. She did not stop to rest, though her body ached. She crossed the river under the light of the moon, the cold water numbing her wounds, and reached the palace gates just as the first pale light of dawn touched the horizon. The guards who had doubted her were the first to see her. Their eyes widened as she stepped forward, the beast's head swinging from her grip. Word spread quickly by the time she reached the throne hall. The courtyard was crowded with villagers, palace servants, and curious onlookers. Prince Obina sat waiting, his expression unreadable. When Adanne entered, silence fell. She walked to the center of the hall, dropped the beast's head at his feet, straightened. "It is done," she said simply. The prince rose and came toward her. He studied her face, the blood on her skin, the weariness in her stance, and the unflinching pride in her eyes. Slowly he reached out and took her hand. "I asked for proof of courage," he said, his voice carrying through the hall. "You have given me more than that. You have shown me the strength to face what others fear, the will to endure pain, and the spirit to finish what you begin. These are the qualities of a queen." A murmur swept through the crowd, but no one dared speak against his words. From that day, Adanne was no longer spoken of as the woman with the unbearable smell. She was Adanne the brave, the queen who had slain the beast of the deep forest. People still caught her scent, but it no longer turned them away instead. They remembered the day she had walked alone into the darkness and returned carrying its head, and in the years that followed, those who heard her story understood the truth. Beauty fades, scents change, but the heart that dares does not.